Hello, ITPC. Joshua Stewart, Pipe Up North. Happy New Year. Well, I suppose I could say something sappy about 2024 and optimism for 2025 or something, but I won't. Maybe just hope that every year is better than the last. How about that? So, thought about what to do for year end, year beginning, and I could do my top five or bottom five or something like that, but everybody does those, so. But figured out maybe just new year I'll do a first impressions of a new blend. New blend for me anyway, which is what I got in my pipe, which is, I believe this is a Marksman Meerschaum lined, which has got kind of the narrow deep bowl that people say is good for Virginias. So that's kind of what I reserve it for, is Virginia Creek blends, or at least Virginia heavy non-aromatics. So that's what's in there today. So, first impressions, Peterson Flake. I've been enjoying the pipe for, what's it been? Almost a year and a half, not quite. And, well, full disclosure, this isn't my first, well, it's my first full bowl, but I had a taster bowl like a week or two ago when it first came in. But this is my first full bowl of it. And I believe it's a straight Virginia. I don't think there's any freak. No, it just says brown Virginia pipe tobacco, pressed first, then delicately cut into fine slices. So the slices are a little bit wide, which I won't bother to open it, but so that true first impression that I did a week ago, it wasn't on camera or anything. Just filled the cob half full. It was about a quarter of a flake. This one was about 3/4 of a flake to get it full to the top, and I tend to not pack my pipe super tight, so I kind of pack it fairly loose. Now, I tend to like Virginias, or especially like straight Virginias, so kind of had high expectations for this, and I would say so far, I'm only a couple minutes into this bowl, but so far it's not disappointing. Too early to say if it's in the top 5 or top 10, but yeah, it's there's just a tinge of some spiciness there, which there's no preek. I suppose Virginias can have just a little bit on their own too. Say, I'm not an expert. If you want expert reviews, there's plenty of them out there. I'm just a newbie sharing my thoughts. Yeah, no real tongue bite to speak of so far. Which for me, that's one of my things that'll really turn me off of a blend, even if it tastes really good. If it bites me, it's generally going to be passed over. But this one, and there's no filter in this pipe, so that's a pretty good sign if it's not biting without a filter. No, I may someday add a filter to this one. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, it's just a nice, I would say, relatively mild flavor. Now, if you don't like Virginias at all, it might not be for you, but so far I like it, and I'll probably get a couple more tins eventually to put in the cellar. Now, unfortunately, this is the Peterson Flake is one of the STG blends, and you know they're an existing STG blend, so I think they'd be pretty stupid to eliminate some of these Peterson blends. But I think this Flake is one of their more popular Peterson blends. So now I like having choices and variety, but from a business perspective, I can maybe see eliminating the bottom 25% of the sellers or something like that, or bringing them back for a limited run every couple of years. Can't do the McDonald's McRib thing with it. Seems to be working for them. Thank you, Rose. So anyway, well, speaking of Rose, she not too long ago passed 1,000 subs. So congratulations, Rose. So that's definitely quite an accomplishment, especially in, what's it been? Definitely less than a year, because I think she started presenting shortly after I did. And I remember seeing her in the comments shortly after I started on my channel. It wasn't too long after that she started presenting herself. So but she's doing a GAW for her 1,000 subscriber thing, and part of that was to either tell a story or tell a joke. So I do have a joke that Whenever somebody says tell a joke, it's the first one that always pops into my head. I first heard it when I was, I don't know, maybe 10 years old, give or take. I grew up in rural west central Minnesota. There's a lot of Scandinavian ancestry in that area, especially Norwegian. Now, I don't have any Norwegian blood in me, but I do have a lot of Scandinavian. My wife does have just a little bit of Norwegian. But with a lot of Norwegian ancestry, they like to poke fun at themselves. So there was a lot of Norwegian jokes that would go around, and especially Ole and Lena jokes, which are supposedly fictitious characters that just became part of the local culture, and then their friends Sven and Helga. So one of the stories that, which I'm assuming is a fictitious story, revolves around the time when Ole and Sven were shingling Ole's barn. Of course, they picked the windiest day of the year to shingle their barn, and they're struggling up there with trying to hold stuff down and keep things under control. And before you know it, the ladder blows down to get up to where they're at on the roof of the barn. And Sven says, Ole, the ladder blew down. And Ole says, oh, don't worry. When Helga calls us in for lunch, she can put it back up for us. Ole says, okay. So they kept on working for a little while, and pretty soon Lena yells from the house, time for lunch. So they start yelling, trying to get Helga to come down and put the ladder back up for him. But Helga, she went back in the house, or Lena, Helga, whoever it was. Maybe they were both there. Don't matter. They go back in the house, and the guys are yelling and yelling and yelling. And the ladies, they don't hear them. So they're sitting up on the roof of the barn, just kind of scratching their head. And then Ole says to Sven, well, tell you what. There's a manure pit on the northwest corner of the barn. We can just jump down and jump into that and be a nice soft landing. Sven says, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. You go first, Ole. Ole says, oh, fine, okay, I'll go first. So Ole goes up to the corner of the barn. Of course, you can't really see over the edge, so you're just kind of jumping by blind faith. So he kind of gauges where he's pretty sure where the manure pit's at. And so he goes, he slides off the roof of the barn. Sven says, Ole, you okay, Ole? Doesn't hear anything for a minute. Ole! Finally, Ole, yeah. Are you okay, Ole? Ole says, yeah, it's only knee deep. Come on down. So Sven, he kind of gauges right where Ole slid off the roof and goes down, and he's up to his chest. And Ole's standing there and says, Ole, I thought you said it was only knee deep. Ole says, yeah, but I went head first. So, kind of a dirty joke, but so if that's too dirty to disqualify me, I got a true story that's a little bit cleaner. Now this is one that my parents told me about me, and I don't remember it, because I would have been probably 3, 4, 5 years old at the time. And this would have been probably in the late 70s. And Dad was farming at the time. And of course, out on the farm, you got the fuel barrel for the tractors. And Dad had some diesel tractors too, but they're on Grandma's farm that was like 3 miles away, is kind of where the main home base for the farm was. Dad just did a few odds and ends repairs at our place. Then he had the one gasoline fuel barrel, and Grandma's farm had the gas and diesel fuel barrels. So, you know, every once in a while he'd fill up the pickup or one of the tractors, the smaller tractors that were gas tractors at our house. And then of course at that time too, all the gas stations were full service, and you pull up and you just say fill her up, and the attendant would fill it up. And then of course you give them the cash and tell them keep the change, or expect them to give you a change, whatever it was. So one day Dad came home for lunch from working on the farm. Say most of the stuff was over at Grandma's place, so that's where he kind of spent a lot of time. But he'd come home for lunch once in a while. During really busy time during harvest, Mom would usually bring lunch out to him. For whatever reason, that day he came home for lunch. And of course, being growing up in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have helicopter parents, so I was out. It wasn't uncommon for me to be running around outside, especially in the spring, summer, fall, and just doing whatever little kids do when they're unsupervised. So for whatever reason that day, I thought it'd be cool to play gas station attendant. And so I drug the... Keep in mind, this is all stories that I've heard from my parents that I don't remember myself. I drug the garden hose, you know, stuck it in the fuel cap of Dad's pickup, turn on the spigot, and let it run until it was overflowing. You know, shut it off, put the cap back on, close the lid, and came back in the house and, you know, real proudly filled her up, Dad. Now my dad, he what should we say? He had a pretty short temper, and he didn't like it when things didn't go his way or caused him extra problems. But Mom said it was just, and right away, as soon as I said that, they knew what I did without even actually looking. And apparently Dad wasn't too upset because he just thought it was too cute. So, and he had dual tanks on that pickup, so it didn't really stop him from doing what he needed to do right then. So, although I imagine it was a little bit of a pain in the butt to drain the tank, and especially if you had a almost full tank of fuel already, all become unusable. But so that's my true story. So if my first one is too dirty to be and gets me disqualified, hopefully that one will still work. So anyway, I'm kind of liking this Peterson Flake. If I'm in the mood for something real strong flavor, this won't cut it. But if I'm in the mood for a mild Straight Virginia. This was pretty decent stuff. I'll have to have the Orlick Golden Slice again one of these days. I haven't had that in months. That's supposedly one of the kind of standards for straight Virginia. Though I had to think about it. I think some have said that it's got just a little bit of Perican. But and I'll maybe throw out one more thing as long as I'm on here and thinking about it. And if you stuck around this long, it might be of something that you'd maybe be interested in. I remember even before I was a presenter, I'd hang out on a couple of guys when they would do a live. Just, hang out and listen and, participate in the conversation a little bit. In fact, one of those lives, I think, is the very first one where I saw Yusuf on there. Because I hadn't seen him as a presenter prior to that, but anyway, might be considering doing a live someday here myself. I think it might be kind of fun to come on for a half hour or an hour or something, just kind of visit with you guys. So my question is if you'd be interested in hanging out if I did a live sometime, and I would probably announce it in one or two videos before when it would happen. But that's part of my question is when would be best to do a live? Or maybe what day of the week? Because for me, it's usually later in the evenings that would work best. Like after 10 o'clock at night, local time. But weekdays, weekends, doesn't really matter. I don't have as much going on now in January as I did in November, December. But if it were to be at, say, 10, 11 o'clock Central Time for the U.S., what days of the week would work best for people at that time? Hold on a second, I got a phone call. Sorry about that. It's New Year's Day here right now, middle of the afternoon. I just got summoned in the house to play some games because that's kind of what we typically do on New Year's Day is play a few games. I'll play a board game or two, but playing board games all day is too much for me, so I'll usually excuse myself out to the shop here and try to knock out a couple little projects or something. But they said they got a new game that's a computer game, apparently, they really want me to come in for, so I'll go in and play it. But so anyway, as far as a particular day of the week, let me know what works for you to do a live. I'll try to get one in sometime in January. If I can figure out how to make it work. So. I think with that, I'll call this good. Happy New Year. Have a good day. This is Joshua Stewart, Pipe Up North. Have a good day.